Hi, I'm Lanny, and this is Preserving Today. Here we are with episode 3 of the podcast, and today I'm going to share a little bit about how I'm planning for my garden this year. In the past, I've thought about all these things that I wanted to challenge myself to grow to see if I could. So, for instance, tomatoes. Tomatoes have a longer time to come to fruit, and in my zone, it's kind of like right in there, like under the window, and you have to wonder if we'll have the right weather at the end to ripen those tomatoes. Last year we did not. It was a really bad year for tomatoes. I have a cat on the table. Why is that happening to me? No. Go in the windowsill. You're weird. So anyway, my tomatoes were beautiful. They were loaded, and then we just stopped getting sun. And they never ripened. They started to get like they were going to get soft and mold. So I pulled them all off the bushes and I put them into paper bags and I was going to ripen them. But I just had a baby, so I was still like not getting a lot of sleep and nursing all the time. And those tomatoes ended up rotting and I had to throw them out, and I had fruit flies all over my kitchen. Now some of them I made into beautiful fermented green tomato pickles. They were so good. I do have a video on how I did that. You can watch it on my channel. I'll put a link here and in the description. I also made some like green tomato salsa, that kind of stuff, but I just didn't have the energy to do a lot with them. I was hoping they would ripen and then I would put them in my freezer and make something with them later, but that didn't happen. In the past, I've tried to do eggplants and bell peppers and other things like that, and we're just not in an environment where those things thrive. And so this year I'm really thinking about, why would I do that? If we were in a scenario where the world had ended and I wasn't going to be able to go to the grocery store to get what I want, I wouldn't be experimenting to try to grow crops that are really difficult to grow so I could have those things that I used to like from the grocery store. I would be trying to grow the surefire things that I knew that I could get a lot of and that would preserve well one way or another, either in a cellar or in a canning jar or in a fermentation crock. I would focus on those things that grow really well around here. So last year, with the garden being maybe more neglected than it ever has been since we started it on this property, because of my pregnancy and my birth, the 1st of July, right in the middle of everything, we had a really wild garden, and a lot of the stuff that came up was just stuff that had seeded from the previous year. For instance, all the potatoes that came up were from the few potatoes we not harvested the year before, and we had a lot of potatoes. We had a lot of raspberries even coming up in places that we didn't want them, and normally I would have tried to get those out of there and tame them a bit, but instead we let them grow and we enjoyed eating them. We also had carrots that came up all over the place. I just put carrot seed in with everything that I grew, and I planted cabbage and I put carrot seeds around it. I put everything. So even the stuff that didn't work out, and with weeds, when you would start to clear the weeds, you'd see these little sprouts of carrots. And if I cleared enough sun, those things would grow. And then my 4-year-old was harvesting carrots right up until, the ground became frozen. He also was able to get a ton of potatoes out of the ground. We had strawberries that came up again, and tons of herbs, calendula that reseeded itself, poppies, like beautiful flowers. We also had friends come and help trade for labor for chickens we were growing out for meat, and they traded labor for working in the garden, and they helped me with my herb garden. We planted some new herbs, but these things that are going to come back the next year seem like the smartest thing to put my energy towards. And so this year when I was thinking what I would do for the garden, I thought of things that we like to eat. But then I also thought of things that grow well, and I thought of things that preserve well, and things that we like to eat fresh for sure that also grow well here. So what I've decided I want to do in the garden is early in the season I'm going to plant out snap peas, but I'm not going to do as much as I normally do because I like to keep those around for little kids because those are so fun to just pull off and eat, or break them open and look at the peas inside and to understand how all of that works. And they're easy to grow here, and we can start them really early, like even before the last frost. So I'm going to plant snap peas and I'm going to plant pole beans, but I think I'm going to plant a different kind of pole bean. I'm not going to plan on canning green beans because we don't really like to eat them. I do like to, saute, stir fry some green beans during the season, but that's only once or twice. But to grow those beans out, to then thrash them and harvest the actual beans inside for like soups and stuff over the winter, that sounds cool. So last year, my son has a grown-up friend that he goes and gets to play in her garden, and she's very magical. She had the coolest beans. They were like purple and white stripy. I don't remember what kind they are, but my kid loved them so much he would bring them home calling them magic beans, and we saved some so that we can plant them this year. And she was making soup and stuff with those, and they were really good. So I think that's a wonderful idea. I've done that once before where I grew beans for actually saving dried beans instead of eating green beans, and we liked it quite a bit. I'm also going to put radishes in the ground. Even though we don't eat a ton of them, I do like to use some of them for fermenting with a taqueria mix, which is like a street taco fermented mix. It's like radish and onion and garlic and carrots. You could use jicama if you want. I have a video on how I make the fermented taqueria mix, so you can watch that if you want to learn how I do it. The radishes are also great because they grow really quickly. So we plant them super early with those other things I just mentioned, and they'll be up before anything else. And that's just really exciting for my 4-year-old. And the garden is his special spot and where we do a lot of our best work together. So I like to reward him with those quick crops if we can. I'm also going to watch the bed where my lettuce went to seed last year and see if I'll get a lot of lettuce. But this year I'm going to try and transplant a lot of those baby lettuces as they come up to a different area that's been a little better cared for and has the weeds a little better under control, and organize that lettuce a little bit so I'll get some better harvest out of it. Last year, we had lettuce that went to seed the previous year, and that's what came up. And it was wild, but it was cool. I could just go out there with scissors and cut what I wanted every day. But it quickly was overgrown with weeds, and it was harder to access. And I think that that's fine for a few years, but maybe moving things around will help the soil as well too, and planting some other things in that area. I am going to grow carrots because they grow really well here, and it's any root vegetable or anything growing underground is my son, 4-year-old's favorite. And this year we're going to have the baby out there with us. He'll be 1 in July, and I'm excited for him to be digging in the dirt and finding the hidden treasures. So radishes, carrots, beets, and potatoes are all necessary for that fun to dig underground. I'm definitely planting popping corn again. That was so cool. I made a video on our popping corn harvest. It was meager. We got about 2 cups of popping corn kernels in the end after everything, but I abused those starts. I started them inside. They got root bound. I should have transferred them outside way before I did. I finally had somebody come and help me. I was so pregnant. I had a huge baby. I had pulled a muscle in my abdomen from my belly getting so big, and I was not able to like bend forward and have the weight of the baby dangle, and like squatting was getting even hard and moving forward. So it was just like impossible for me to get stuff in the ground unless I could sit on the ground on my butt and like lean to the side. And I was able to plant stuff there, but I couldn't plant stuff like in the middle of my beds. So I'm so thankful for all the different ladies that came and helped us, and all the work that my husband and my kids did this year to keep the garden last year to keep the garden as good as it was, even though it was still kind of sad, because a garden is something that it shouldn't take a lot of effort, but it should take daily attention and tending. And that daily attention was not happening. That was like monthly attention where people would come in and help me with a big sweep of like weeds or planting, and then it would just be a little bit neglected again. Beside my husband, he would be out there weeding some and watering as it needed, and that was important too. But this year I'm excited to focus on it, and with that I'm excited to do the popping corn right and get a really big harvest, because how cool would it be to use only my own popping corn for the entire year? It would be really cool, and it would be easy to store. And I love the fact that the popping corn kernels are also what you could use to make masa. So if I wanted to get really deep into it, or if I look at it from the prepper point of view, I could be, sealing these in Mylar bags and saving them to make a cornmeal with. And you can make cornbread or masa and tortillas and tamales and all of it. And I do have a grain mill, so that is feasible. That's something I could do, and I love it. I mentioned beets as well, and those grow really good here in my soil. You can eat the greens, but I don't go for them. They just don't really call to me. Sautéing them sometimes, it can be good. But beets themselves I really enjoy once in a while, and so does my 4-year-old. And I love making beet kvass. So I like to grow my own beets, make kvass a few times during this late spring, early summer when those are growing, and just enjoy that rich, vibrant red color. It's beautiful. And if you don't know what beet kvass is, I should probably make a video on that. I will definitely do that in the next coming months because that's one of the easiest fermented drinks. It's kind of a gateway to other kvasses. As you're using higher sugar fruits, it can get more complicated. So beet kvass is a good learning tool to just see, yes, you can make this, slightly effervescent, natural, tonic, a little bit of salt. It's nature's Gatorade. It's probiotic rich. It's got all I'm sure they say antioxidants or whatever. It purifies the liver.
It purifies the blood.
What does that actually even mean? I don't know, but I like it and I feel good when I drink it. So that's why I have beet kvass. Plus, it gives your lips a nice rosy color without having to use any makeup. Very nice. You can rub it on your cheeks for a rouge. I'm sure people were using beets for makeup before, and we should probably all do that if we're real true crunchy moms. So, beets, potatoes, carrots, radishes, peas, beans, lettuce. I'm going to plant some broccoli, even though it takes too long and it barely yields anything. My kid gets so excited when he finds a broccoli crown and he gets to pinch off a little piece and eat it every time we're out there. I almost never actually bring it inside and cook it or anything. It's just for snacking on in the garden, so I'll grow like 3 or 4. I also really like how Swiss chard looks, and it grows without even having to think about it. I'm going to plant some red or rainbow chard and let that go as well. What I didn't do last year, and I really missed, is any kind of squash. We weren't successful with any squash. I think I had planted some acorn squash and it didn't come up. So I want to do acorn squash, butternut squash, and pumpkins this year. The reason I picked the acorn and the butternut is because those are our favorite to eat and they store really well. The first year I did those, I was able to keep them in my pantry, not even in the basement, in the floor of my pantry, in the kitchen, probably maintained about 60 degrees at least for the whole winter. And those things lasted the entire, almost 365 days until we were going to harvest more. I still had one butternut in the pantry and I fermented it. And then after fermenting butternut squash, that lasted another 3 years or something, like an insane amount of time. Butternut squash, acorn squash, are favorite to eat and easy to preserve. So I'm definitely growing those. And we want to grow our own pumpkins this year because the kids love Halloween, the harvest time, pumpkins. We've grown a few small ones, but I'd like to grow sugar pumpkins and some of the carving pumpkins so that the kids can grow their own jack-o'-lanterns, and that sounds really fun. We of course put garlic in the ground. I put garlic in the ground in late October, and I'm a little concerned for it this year because it stayed warm for way longer, and we actually didn't get deep freezes until late into January. So by the time that happened, we had some of those garlics already sprouting and coming up above the soil, and I'm just not sure if they're going to survive after now having the snow and the deep freezes that we've had in the end of January and into February. We will see, but I know I could plant more garlic really early as soon as the ground is workable, and I could try to get that later harvest of garlic in as well, and we'll see. But it'll be the 3rd year running that we've only eaten our own garlic, and that's something I'm super proud of because I love garlic. We use it in a lot of different ways. You can watch my video on how I make garlic toum, which is a good way to preserve garlic. And I'm working on a very specific video that I'm going to share how I preserved my garlic when I had a bad garlic harvest and I still made the most of it. And last but not least, one of the warmer weather crops that I do love is cucumbers. And pickling cucumbers are an absolute necessity because we love pickles and we love real fermented dill pickles. So again, I will grow the same kinds of, like gherkin style, small pickling cucumbers and just ferment them. Every couple of days, I'm usually starting a quart or a half gallon. It's not something that comes in a big harvest. You just have to keep maintaining it because they all kind of mature at different times. So I'll do that, but I hope to also grow some slicing cucumbers this year, some English style slicing cucumbers. I haven't done that for a couple years, but we love fresh cucumbers too. So I'd like to grow a couple of vines of that and a whole bunch of the pickling cucumbers. You can see the video I made on how I make my dill pickled cucumbers And I do that, of course, fermented, and it's easy, and I have that on the channel as well. Man, talking about all this stuff I want to do is getting me so excited for the spring, and it's really cool to be able to tell you I have all these resources now that I've banked, all these different videos that I've made on how I preserve all this stuff. Makes me feel pretty accomplished. There's other things in life that maybe are more important than sharing online, but this is something I really enjoy. I like editing videos and I think it's fun. So thank you so much for watching them, and hopefully you're getting something out of it. If you ever have any questions on how I do things, or if you need me to clarify something, just let me know. I'm happy to answer the questions in the comments. And I said last but not least about the cucumbers, but really last but not least, I am going to try again to grow cabbage. I have a love-hate relationship. We have those cabbage moths. They get a million holes in them. There's tiny slugs in there, and I always bring it in. It takes me a long time to clean it up, and once it's all dirt and bug-free, then I make sauerkraut, and it's really good. But I hate the effort, and it's so easy to go get an organic cabbage from the store, and it's just clean, and there's not bugs. But it makes me wonder, what are they doing organic that is preventing them from having cabbage moths and slugs? Is it something cool that I need to know, or are they just using some kind of pesticide that's considered organic? I'm not sure. But I'm going to try again to grow that. I'm going to try again to grow the Napa cabbage because I've done that in the past and it's really good, and I make great kimchi and really good salads. Love cabbage, cooked, raw, and fermented, so we're going to try that again too. What are you growing in your spring and summer garden this year? And do you live in a climate similar to mine or very different? And where do you get your seeds from? Give me some tips. I've done Baker Seeds, Baker Creek, and I've done, the local one is Uprising Seeds here locally to me. So that's like the popping corn I grow, and a few other things, a lot of the lettuce variety, and those are really nice seeds. Where do you get heirloom seeds from, and what is your favorite thing to grow in the garden? Let me know. All right, that's it for today. I'm Lanny, and this was the Preserving Today podcast.